At 20 years old, I'm fortunate enough to say that this past year I've averaged over $50,000 per month in income, and I'm well on my way to pushing my net worth over $1 million by the end of this year. Today, I'm going to share 3 of the most powerful and valuable mindsets that I know, and that if my entire identity was erased and I could only hold on to 3 mindsets and I had to become a millionaire, these are the exact 3 that I would pick. I believe these 3 mindsets have been key reasons to my past success, and they will continue to be key reasons in my future success. I hope you find them as valuable as I have, and let's get right into it. Stop caring what others think. In your 20s, you care what everyone thinks. When you get to your 40s, you stop caring what everyone thinks. And finally, when you get to your 60s, you realize that no one was ever thinking about you in the first place. This is a point that I'm honestly really passionate on, and it's because I see it every day. I see people who are living for others. And I put it like that because at the end of the day, when you put other people's opinions ahead of what you want to do and what you want to get out of life, that's what you're doing, is what you're living for others. People who don't start businesses because they're afraid of what their family thinks. People who don't go to college because they're afraid if they fail, what their friends will say. People who can't say no to parties because they don't want to feel left out, even though deep within they don't actually want to go, and they know that the next day they're not going to have as productive of a day. When we give in to these things, whether it's our family, our parents, our friends, whatever, most of us feel a shame within, and shame is the worst feeling because it's a disappointment. We've disappointed ourselves, and oftentimes those who are closest to us are hardest to disappoint. For most of us, this might be our parents. For some of you, this might be a role model or a mentor that you grew up with. And of course, the goal isn't to disappoint others, especially those who have helped you to get to where you are. But at some point, you have to realize that it's no longer their life and it's your life. The decision you make doesn't have to be at their cost, even though oftentimes people frame it in this way. If you don't come to this party, you're not really our friends. Well, that doesn't even make sense. The only reason that would be true is only if you say it's true. And if that's the type of friends that you have, I would ask you to reconsider your friends. And so at the end of the day, you have to realize that you need to stop living for other people. Because how can you expect other people to respect your decisions when you don't even respect them yourself? Understand that you need to be confident in yourself and be confident in the decisions that you make. You need to make a decision and live with the pain of the right decision or the wrong decision. But indecision is worse than both of those. Realize that your uncomfort is getting in the way of where you want to go. Yeah, it might be comfortable to tell your parents that no, you're not going to do their lifelong plan for you. But you know what's going to be more uncomfortable? When you look back on your life and you're an accountant just like they wanted you to be, and you're disappointed in yourself. Because it sucks when your parents are disappointed in you, when your family, when your friends, when whoever is disappointed in you. But what's even worse is that when you grow old and you become disappointed in yourself. And the worst part is that you're gonna grow to resent those who stopped you. So it's for the benefit of everyone. Make your decisions and respect yourself for it. And realize that 90% of the uncomfort that comes from making decisions for yourself comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of not being good enough. And so you have to realize that until you respect your own decision and your own approval and your own validation becomes enough for you, until that day, you will be living your life and making decisions for others around you. So respecting your decision over the opinion of others, and especially people you don't know, has been huge in getting me to where I am today. And I think it'll help 90% of most people who are having trouble getting started in something. Mindset number 2, everything is figureoutable. This is a concept that I've had with me ever since I was a kid. But full transparency, I got this term from this book. And this book is on my list of books to read, but I haven't actually read it yet. I just really like the phrase. Now, I did go ahead and read a summary by ChatGPT, and just as I assumed, it aligns exactly with what my preconceptions of everything is figureoutable means. At least to me, everything is figureoutable means that there's no problem too big. There's nothing that you cannot figure out, and there's nothing that can't be done. Especially in the day and age that we live in, if you have an internet source and some sort of device to do research, you can figure out literally almost everything. Especially with tools coming out like ChatGPT, where you can literally ask him anything and it'll give you step-by-step tutorials. It'll teach you how to do new concepts steps. It can be your tutor, your mentor. AI is going to revolutionize everything. But this concept existed well before that too. So using ChatGPT's summary of the book, as well as some of my thoughts on what everything is figureoutable means, I've broken it down into 3 main points. Number 1, break limiting beliefs. We need to understand that most of our limitations come from our mind. We live in an era where our work is not done with our hands, our fists, with our labor and our strength. It's done with our mental strength. It's done with how smart can you work and how hard can you work and how well can you multiply those two together to create huge results. Step number 2 is to break down bigger problems. Understand that when problems are too complex, usually it just means that you haven't asked enough questions. And lastly, number 3, use resources and creativity. This is what I mean when I say use tools like ChatGPT and new AIs that are coming out, because in the old days, you would have to read books, ask professors, network, you'd have to research studies, and now it's becoming even easier to become resourceful. So let's go through an example of how I would walk through steps 1 through 3 on using the everything is figureoutable approach. Let's say I want to start a $100 million business. Step number 1, reframe your mind. That'll never be me. I could never start a $100 million business. 100 million, that's way too much money. I've never thought that I couldn't. And maybe that's arrogance, maybe it's not. But I think to be ultra wealthy, you need a certain level of arrogance. But you have to ask yourself, and this is what I do. Why not? If others have done it, why can't you do it? Because let me tell you, there are some dumb people who have made hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, if you ask me, they're not dumb, but socially they might be dumb. They might not be the best at test scores. They might not be the best readers, but they have certain skills that they've leveraged to create these huge companies. So break your limiting beliefs. Why not me? Second, break it into smaller steps. $100 million business. What does that even mean? Well, $100 million is usually off of a valuation, which means it comes down to a business multiplier. That just means however much the business is making per year in profit times a business multiple, which is dependent on the sector, equals the valuation. So yes, you have to understand more. Well, keep asking questions, break it down. Well, if I'm in the service industry, what's my business multiple? You're gonna learn that usually you have a 3 to 5x multiple. And that means if you want a $100 million business valuation, you're gonna be needing to make anywhere from 20 million to 33 million a year using that 3 to 5x multiple. If you're in the software industry, maybe the tech industry, you have a 10x multiple. That means you only have to be doing 10 million a year in order to hit that $100 million business valuation. And then you keep breaking it down, and you break it down, and you break it down, and you ask so many questions until that last question becomes so stupid and obvious. That's when you know you've asked enough. And that's when the steps going forward become simple. I know this is easier said than done, but one of my craziest inspirations has been Elon Musk. And if you're a fan of the channel, you know I reference him all the time. But that's because he truly is an inspiration. I mean, this man in the year 2000 began his interest in space exploration. And he literally wanted to make the human species an interplanetary species. Some of you guys don't even know what that means. That means he wants to colonize other planets. Talk about complex problems. And he was still working at PayPal. And so there's literally stories that employees would see Elon Musk reading books on rockets and space travel during his lunch breaks. And one time an employee asked Musk, "Why are you reading all those rocket books? What are you doing that for?" And he said, "I want to build a rocket." And it's literally documented that most of his rocket science foundations were learned by reading textbooks, borrowing friends' books, just reading and reading books. And so to me, that's just so crazy how someone could have this huge complex problem and learn it by reading books. Now, obviously, eventually he started networking and talking to other mentors, and he just stayed in the space, and he became like a sponge and just kept learning and learning, and he was the student. But Elon Musk knows that everything is figureoutable. And so I think about that sometimes. You know, sometimes I'm struggling on something in my business, and I realize, how silly is my little problem? Maybe my ad campaign failed, or maybe I have some legal fees I need to pay. How silly are these little problems compared to making humans an interplanetary species. And so he really inspires me. And the next time you complain that you don't know how to make an LLC or you don't know how to run a Facebook ad, think again, because everything is figureoutable. Really quick, if you guys like these type of videos, it would mean a lot if you hit that subscribe button so I can make more videos like this. This is my only ask, so it would mean a lot. Anyways, back to the video. Third and final mindset: deserve what you want. And so what I'm about to say might be a little bit controversial, but that's because I truly believe it. The world is a more fair place than we like to give it credit for. And not fair in the way you might think, so let me explain. Most of us like to throw out this term unfair too loosely. Usually when we say the world is unfair, what we're doing is we're letting our accountability go. It might feel better for us to say that wasn't our fault. We like to blame the externals because that's easier. Of course it's easier. But the worst part about that is that you let go of your own power. You become powerless to a situation. When it becomes the world's fault, someone else's fault, there's no longer something you can do to change that situation. And so you have to think, what do you want out of life? And then you have to ask yourself, okay, now do you deserve that? And I made a whole video on this, but let me just quickly explain it. There's something called the deserve it factor. Now you need to ask yourself, what is your deserve it factor? 1 to 10. If you want a business, how much do you deserve the business 1 out of 10? If you say you should be a millionaire, what is the proof? What is the evidence that you should be a millionaire? Have you been waking up at 5 a.m., going home at 7 for the past 2 years in a row, not missing a single day, and every day working to move your business forward? Is that your evidence? Because that sounds like good evidence to me. If you say you should have a 6-pack abs, what is your evidence for that? Why do you deserve that? Have you been working out 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for the past 10 years? What's the proof you have to back up that statement? And so the problem is that we make these statements, but we don't have the awareness to know that we actually don't deserve those things. And this is another tip, not a mindset, but I would say definitely helpful. If our friends were more honest with us, we would have more awareness of the fact that we don't deserve the things we say we do. But instead our friends just comfort us and say, oh, it's not your fault. It's just the world's fault. It's just the market's fault. You know, it's not your fault. But that's not going to do anything to help you. And so these are the rules of the world. If you want to be in shape, do the steps to be in shape. You know what you need to do to be in shape. These are the rules. Now, would you want to live in a world where these rules don't apply? You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger worked out for 6 hours a day for decades. No one says the body that he has is unfair. But imagine if Arnold worked out 6 hours a day for decades and he was still skinny fat. Would you want to live in a world where the rules don't apply? I know I wouldn't. So there's 3 types of people in this world. Those who watch things happen, those who make things happen, and those who wonder what happened. Now, what kind of person are you? And so I want you to live with such intention and purpose that you don't watch things happen and you don't just wonder what happened, but you make things happen because you intentionally set yourself out to. And so if there's anything for you to take away from this video is this: make your success obvious and expected. Make people say, of course he's made 100 grand this year. Of course. Did you see how much he worked? Of course he's worth $1 million by the age of 30. It'd be crazy if he wasn't. Did you see everything he did to do that? That's expected. Once people start saying this about you, then you can complain why you haven't gotten the success that you deserve. But until people are saying that about you, it's probably because you don't deserve what you say you deserve. And until then, make your success undoubtable. Leave no questions in the minds of others. And when that happens, just wait a little bit, give the world some time to catch up, and all that you deserve will come to you. And if you guys are ready to start deserving things, make sure to watch this video where I teach you the top 4 ways to make $700 per day. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.